Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the Strategic Economic and Community Development, or SECD Program Overview webinar. It's my pleasure to introduce Jackie Ponte Lazaric, Rural Development Innovation Center's Chief Innovation Officer. Jackie?
Thanks, Scott, and hello, everyone. My name is Jackie Ponte Lazaric. Welcome, and thank you for being here today for our Strategic Economic and Community Development SECD webinar. I am the Chief Innovation Officer, and I run our Innovation Center here today. The RD Innovation Center works across rural development to innovate and enable better program delivery for all of our RD customers, like you. We do this through customer and partner engagement, policy and regulatory development, and leveraging of data for more informed decision making and strategic outreach. The RD Innovation Center also administers key programs, program-related activities such as rural placemaking, and today's topic, SECD. SECD is an integral part of our approach here at Rural Development to program delivery. In a nutshell, each year, Rural Development reserves funds from some of its key programs for regional, multi-jurisdictional, and multi-sectoral projects. To access these reserve funds, applicants like yourselves must complete and submit just one additional SECD form with your underlying application. And as I noted, the RD Innovation Center is responsible for administering the SECD program and reviews those SECD application forms that come in. We work with our program areas, and after we score those points are sent over to the program area and considered as part of your full and complete application process. Just to give you some numbers, from last year in FY23, we received 107 applications from 22 states requesting $132, roughly, $1 million in funding through the SECD process. 83 of those projects were obligated, totaling about $56 million, and 52 were community facilities projects. Obligated for about $2.5 million. 20 of them were RBDG projects for about $1.7 million, and 11 projects were our water and waste projects for about $52 million. And so we see that 17 states receive SECD investments. It's really heartening. I've been around since the strategic economic and community development provision in the Farm Bill was enacted. I remember those early days, and this was really a push for from Congress to say we want to support regional projects where communities are sharing resources and leveraging each other's assets to create some really good regional solutions. And through SECD, we've been able each year to set aside some funding and provide some priority for other funding as well, and support these regional projects. So it's been a real pleasure to see it from start till now. I do want to, before we go into today's agenda, I want to have a minute just to talk a little bit, some special notes about this year's SECD notice. If you're here, you probably have already read our Federal Register notice that was published February 13th, 2024. As you may recall, at that time, we were under a continuing resolution, and the Federal Register notice stated that the percentages of set-asides and funding amounts were dependent on a final budget appropriation. On Saturday, this past Saturday, March 9th, the President signed into law our appropriations bill for here at Department of Agriculture and Rural Development received its FY24 budget. And the funding levels in the bill for certain programs are going to have an impact on the agency's ability to set aside funds for SECD this year. Most notably, it's our Rural Development Community Facilities Grant Program is not going to be able to set aside funding this year for SECD as planned. We'll go through all of this again, but I just wanted to make sure up front folks know that we are reviewing the bill. We've been working with our program areas. We believe that community facilities will be the only one that's impacted, but We are working on a corrected notice that will go out. You'll get a preview of that here, but as you listen to today's discussion and learn about the process on how to apply for these, we wanted to let you know that CF will still have loan and loan guarantee available in the set aside for SecD, but it will not have grant available. We do have our regular direct program, but we will not have a set aside under SecD this year. We hope to bring that back for next year. I think we move on to the next slide there, Scott, or I think Scott's running the slides today. So we work closely with the rural communities we serve, and we understand the commitment local leaders bring to vital services and opportunities in their areas. There are times when a regional or multi-jurisdictional or multi-sector approach is really that key to making these investments affordable. And so projects and programs like SecD are super helpful to better leverage those federal, state, and local private funding. So in today's webinar, we will discuss which RD programs are reserving SecD funds this year, eligibility criteria, what SecD forms and information you will need to file an application and where you need to file it, our process for accepting applications, and our timing for processing those applications. And then at the end, there will certainly be time for questions. I'm pleased to hand off now to Dan Webster. He's the director of the Innovation Center's Strategic Engagement Division. And Dan's going to discuss the SecD regulation and highlight the programs and funding percentages for FY24. I'll stay on the line and I'll look forward to hearing your questions later. Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. I'd like to say hello to everyone. My name is Daniel Webster Jr., and I'm the director of the Strategic Engagement Division within the Innovation Center. We're glad you could join us here today for this Strategic Economic and Community Development webinar. Again, that's SecD. Next slide. So Section 6401 of the 2008 Farm Bill authorizes the Secretary of Agriculture to reserve up to 15% of funds made available for a fiscal year for covered programs to support strategic community investment plans. The 2018 Farm Bill also expanded the list of rural development programs eligible to participate in SecD. In fiscal year 2024, 3 covered programs will participate in SecD, and they are the Community Facilities CF grant, the Direct and Guarantee Loan, the Rural Business Development Grant, and the Water and Environmental Grant and Direct and Guarantee Loan programs. The fiscal year 2024 Notice of Solicitation of Applications, we call it NOSA, was published on February 13th of this year. SecD reserved funds will be obligated for community facilities and water and environmental programs on or before June 30th of this year. The Rural Business Development Grant reserve funds will be obligated on or before July 31st, 2024. All SecD funds must be obligated by September 30th, 2024. Applications are being accepted right now. Next slide. This slide shows the SecD reserve funds percentages agreed to by programs and agency administrators and approved by the Undersecretary. As a reminder, the original SecD notice did include a set-aside percentage for CF grants. Given the enacted funding levels in the recent budget bill, RD will not be able to set aside CF grant funding for SecD this year. We will have both CF fund and loan guarantee set aside in SecD through which we can support regional efforts. My good colleague, Mr. Stan Hill, Asset Risk Management Specialist, will now discuss the CF program. I'll yield back the balance of my time to Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Dan. Excuse me. A little pollen down here in Alabama today. My name is Stan Hill. I'm an Asset Risk Management Specialist with the Community Facilities Program. I'll be discussing this Community Facilities Program and providing some examples of projects that we've done in the past. Next slide, please. Community Facilities, or CF, as we like to refer to it, administers programs designed to develop essential community facilities for public use in rural areas. These facilities include schools, libraries, adult and child care centers, hospitals, medical clinics, assisted living facilities, fire and rescue stations, police stations, community centers, public buildings, and also rural transportation. These loan and grant funds may be used for the purchase of equipment for those items that I've just discussed. The CF program supports the success of rural communities by providing direct and guaranteed loans and grants for the construction, acquisition, and renovation of essential community facilities in rural areas and towns that have a population of 20,000 or less. Next slide. Here are additional examples of types of essential community facilities that we can fund. As you can see here, we have healthcare facilities, public facilities again, educational services, local food pantries, food banks, community kitchens, those type of projects. And we also have recently done some public EV charging stations as well. Next slide. The CF programs are available for public bodies such as cities and towns, special service districts such as a hospital district or school district or municipal buildings. Nonprofits or organizations can apply as well that demonstrate significant community financial support and close ties to the community, such as a rural health clinic or a charter school. Tribal entities are available to apply as well. For CF direct loan and grant programs, excuse me, the program must be located and primarily serve rural areas with a population of 20,000 or less. That's currently based on the 2020 census data. For the guaranteed loan program, the project must be located in a rural community with 50,000 or less. And again, that's based on the 2020 census data. The CF direct loan program provides long-term, fixed rate, low cost direct loans up to 40 years, or the useful life of whatever that asset is or whatever it is that we're financing. Current interest rate is at 3.75%, and we change our interest rate on a quarterly basis. Often borrowers leverage long-term fixed rate loan, direct loans with a guaranteed loan from a commercial lender. The blended rate between the direct and the guaranteed loan can be very attractive to the applicant. Our loan and grant programs have a statutory and regulatory requirement called the test for other credit. What that means to the applicant is that is applying for our direct loan funds, they must demonstrate they cannot get credit at reasonable rates and terms from a local, regional, or regional lender or a bank. Next slide, please. Early last year, Desert Star Community School, a public charter school in Arizona, received a $2.5 million CF direct loan with SECD funding. The loan was used by the school to expand the capacity of the school by constructing a larger administrative building and also putting in permanent classrooms. The improvements will allow the school to reduce its use of modular buildings. And this is also the second project that the Desert Star Community School has funded from RD funds and community facilities. In 2016 and 2017, that we provided funds for a 6,300 square foot multi-purpose building, a commercial kitchen and cafeteria space, performance stage with seating for 250 people, an indoor half-court basketball court for recreational type activities, additional classrooms, improved vehicle access and parking. And they also upgraded some much needed infrastructure for the entire campus that included a new septic system, additional water storage, and also increased electrical power. As Jackie and Dan both mentioned, unfortunately this year doesn't look like we'll have additional any set-asides for our grant funds, but we will have grant funds available in our regular program that is probably going to be on a very competitive basis this year with the limited amount that we have. Next slide, please. You can find additional information on our website that is listed here. And now it's my pleasure to turn over the presentation to Gregory Dale, who is sitting in for Lisa Sharp today. Greg will be discussing the Rural Business Development Grant. Greg, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Stan. I am Gregory Dale, Branch Chief in the Research and Planning Branch of Strategic Engagement Division within the Innovation Center. I will be speaking on behalf of Lisa Sharp today. I will be sharing some information with you about the Rural Business Development Grant Program. The Rural Business Development Grant is a competitive grant program designed to support targeted technical assistance, training, and other activities leading to the development or expansion of small and emerging businesses in rural areas. Grants may be made to a public body, government entity, an Indian tribe, or a nonprofit entity primarily serving rural areas. Next slide, please. Programmatic activities are separated into enterprise or opportunity type grant activities. As a result, applications compete in two separate categories. Business opportunity projects must be consistent with any local and area-wide strategic plans for community and economic development, coordinated with other economic development activities in the project area, and consistent with any RD state strategic plan. Enterprise grant purposes include projects for the acquisition and development of land, access streets and roads, the conversion or modernization of buildings, capitalization of revolving loan funds, and the purchase of machinery and equipment for businesses located in rural areas. Next slide, please. The amount of available funding is dependent upon fiscal year 2024 appropriations, but it is expected to be consistent with previous years, 46 million. There is no minimum or maximum award amount, and a match is not required for the application. Complete applications were to be submitted in paper or electronic format by 4:30 on February 28, 2024 in the USDA RD State Office where the project is located. SecD applications are due to the Innovation Center submitted through the SecD SharePoint by close of business on April 30th, 2024. Applicants should consult the notice of solicitation of applications for the RBDG program and contact their local RD State Office should they have questions or need additional information. At this time, Taylor will share information about water and environmental programs. Taylor.
Thank you, Gregory. My name is Taylor Marable, and I'm a community program specialist with the Portfolio Management Branch of the Water Programs Division, and I will be covering the Water and Environmental Programs section of the SECD presentation. Thank you. Water and wastewater programs offers direct loans, guaranteed loans, and grants for drinking water, sanitary sewer, solid waste, and storm drainage facilities in rural areas. SECD funds have been used successfully to improve wastewater treatment systems, build and rehab wastewater treatment plants, improve drinking water systems, including drilling new wells, improving the treatment of groundwater sources, creating regional water systems, and erecting water storage towers. Many communities in the Midwest in particular already have a comprehensive regional plan, making them an easy fit for SECD funding. Next slide, please. Water and Environmental Programs participates with SECD in 3 specific funding programs. In each case, public bodies, nonprofit organizations, and recognized Indian tribes may qualify. All facilities receiving financing must be used for a public purpose. Partnerships with other funding entities is encouraged, and projects financed must be financially sustainable. The direct loan and grant programs are limited to rural areas, cities, and towns with populations of 10,000 or less. For larger communities up to 50,000 in population, loan guarantees are available. Interest rates for direct loans are fixed for the life of the loan and based on the median household income of the service area and currently range from 2.125% to 3.5%. They actually, the current rate is 3.75, but rates are set to change on April 1st. Terms of these loans may be used for the useful life of the facility with a maximum life of 40 years or less if limited by state statute. Partial grants are also available and are based on the financial need and the purpose of the project. The guaranteed loan program helps private lenders provide affordable housing to qualified borrowers to improve access to clean, reliable water and wastewater disposal systems for households and businesses in rural areas. Guaranteed loan rates and terms are negotiated between the applicant and the lender and may either be fixed or variable. USDA Rural Utilities Service offers an 80% loan guarantee, and there's also initial guarantee fee, which is currently 1%. Pre-planning and other technical assistance is also available to financially distressed rural communities looking to improve their water and wastewater disposal systems. More detailed information can be found at the website on the screen. Special note for this particular program, the water and wastewater program, is all applicants, water and wastewater applicants, need to submit their request for funding through the electronic application submission system called RD Apply. Greg Basson will now review the application requirements and application submission process. Greg?
Thank you, Taylor. I am Greg Batson, Economic Development Specialist in the Research and Planning Branch of the Strategic Engagement Division within the Innovation Center and the National Coordinator for SecD. As Taylor said, I will cover the application requirements and submission process. SecD does not change any of the covered program eligibility requirements. To be eligible for SecD, a project must first qualify under a covered RD program. Second, the project must be carried out in a rural area. Third, the project must support the implementation of a multi-jurisdictional and multi-sectoral strategic community investment plan. Implementation means the project must achieve an objective or objectives by taking an action step outlined in the plan's strategy or strategies. While the SecD project does not need to be specifically named in a strategic community investment plan, there must be sufficient evidence in the description of the project that it can be clearly linked to objectives, strategies, or action steps presented in the plan. The project must meet the covered program rural population requirements, and the project must be carried out in a rural area. To meet the carried out in a rural area criteria, the project must be located in a rural area, or the beneficiaries of the project must reside in for individuals or be located in for businesses of rural area. For the physical project location, an example would be a hospital built entirely in a rural area. The hospital project meets the physically located criteria regardless if it provides health care services to non-rural residents. For the beneficiary location, we consider who benefits from the project and not the project's physical location. Think about a project designed to provide water to only residents of a rural area. Even if part of the water service territory is located in a non-rural area, the project's beneficiaries are all residing in the rural area. While this water project would not meet the location definition of carried out in a rural area, it does meet the beneficiaries definition because the beneficiaries of the services, in this case, the individuals, all reside in a rural area. If some of the beneficiaries reside in a non-rural area, then this project would not be an eligible project under the definition of carried out in a rural area. This slide lists the definitions of a plan, jurisdiction, multi-jurisdictional, and multi-sectoral. As you can read, multi-jurisdictional means at least 2 jurisdictions, which could be 2 or more municipalities, 2 or more school districts, or 2 or more water districts. Multi-sectoral means 2 or more sectors. So the plan needs to show participation from 2 or more of the business, education, healthcare, or agriculture sectors, for example. While the majority of plans submitted are comprehensive economic development strategies or CEDS prepared by councils of governments or regional planning commissions, the plans do not have to be CEDS. We will consider several types of plans, including those prepared through the Rural Partners Network, Stronger Economies Together, Rural Economic Development Innovation, and Rural Placemaking Innovation. At the bottom of this slide, we have listed a few types of plans. In addition, we have received and reviewed plans written by school districts, hospital districts, community college districts, and other entities. The key is the project submitted for SECD consideration must implement part or all of the plan. Please know the project does not need to be specifically listed in a plan. However, the application must be clear enough to allow the project to be identified in the plan's objectives, goals, strategies, or action steps. For example, a sewer system improvement project does not need to be specifically mentioned in a plan, but the plan could refer to improving environmental conditions in a community. Sewage treatment can be considered an environmental improvement. If you have questions about a project's inclusion in plan, you can contact us to discuss. We will be glad to discuss your project, review the specific section of the plan in which the project is thought to be mentioned, and provide guidance on the project's inclusion in the plan. The fillable SECD application Form 1980-88, along with an application checklist, can be downloaded from the link provided on the slide. This form, along with the applicable sections of the Strategic Community Investment Plan, should be submitted to the appropriate state program staff. Applicants who are applying for SECD funding through a loan guarantee program may submit forms under the 1RD Guarantee Loan Initiative application guidelines. The SECD application and covered application may be submitted simultaneously. However, this is not necessary. The applications can be submitted separately. And given the timing of each, submitting them separately may be preferable. Acceptable forms of supporting documentation for confirming the governing jurisdiction's knowledge of the project and approval of the plan may include, but are not limited to, memos of understanding with authorizing signatures, letters of support, and cooperative agreements between the applicant and key entities. These documents may pertain to jurisdictional supportive plan, federal funds associated with the plan, and philanthropic funds associated with the plan. Again, a project does not need to be specifically named in a plan. However, the project description must meet sufficient evidence to allow the project to be linked to objectives, strategies, or action steps within the plan. This is a section of the SECD application form. We're not going to go through the form, but we wanted to provide a sample so you could recognize the form. Since the project must implement all or part of a strategic community investment plan, the section of the application presented on this slide is to highlight the information to be provided on the plan, including the plan name, effective dates for the plan, and contacts. This slide is a continuation of the section displayed in the previous slide, where details of the strategic community investment plan will be entered. Again, we're not going to cover the application, but wanted you to be able to recognize the form. Up to 20 points may be awarded to a SECD application to be added to the covered program application score. Up to 10 points may be awarded for the number of plan objectives achieved by completion of the project. If 3 or more objectives are achieved, 10 points will be awarded. If 2 objectives are achieved, 5 points will be awarded. If 1 or no objectives are achieved, 0 points will be awarded. 2 points each for the following criteria may be awarded. For collaboration, the plan should be developed from a collaboration of multiple stakeholders from the plan's jurisdiction. Stakeholders can be a combination of state, local, and tribal governments, nonprofit institutions, institutions of higher education, and private entities. Acceptable forms of documentation showing this support include, but are not limited to, letters of support, media reports, meeting minutes, memorandums of understanding with authorizing signatures, and cooperative agreements between the applicant and key entities. Resources. The plan should demonstrate an understanding of the applicable regional assets that could support implementation of the plan, including natural resources, human resources, infrastructure, and financial resources. There should be evidence the resources are being leveraged to implement the plan. Investment. If a plan includes investment from other partners other than the USDA, documentation should be included, such as statements from the partners attesting to their support, monetary or non-monetary, or other sufficient information to validate support in order to receive the maximum number of points. Rural vision. Evidence should be presented that the plan contains a rural vision for the community. The rural vision, if applicable, should include consideration of the improvement or expansion of broadband. While inclusion of broadband is not necessary, the 2018 Farm Bill recognizes the need for broadband in rural areas and encourages broadband to be considered in outlining community and economic development objectives and action steps. Performance measures. The plan should contain clear objectives with action steps and performance measures for tracking plan implementation progress. Let's review. To be eligible for SECD, a project must qualify for a covered program and must comply with all eligibility requirements of the covered program. Be carried out in a rural area. Two ways to define carried out in a rural area are physical project location and beneficiaries location. Support implementation of a multi-jurisdictional, multi-sectoral plan with clear objectives and measurable action steps to track progress and provide evaluation, and have support of partners and stakeholders, including approval, participation, understanding, and investment. Dan is going to discuss next steps. Dan?
Thank you very much, Dr. Batson. As we previously stated, the FY 2024 NOSA was published on February 13th of this year, and applications are still being accepted. So the first step in the SECD application process is to discuss this project, your project, with your local rural development staff located there in your state. And the state staff can assist you with selecting the appropriate program for your project and discuss SECD applications and deadlines. Covered programs have different application deadlines. State covered program staff will be able to discuss those specific deadlines with you. And please note, all SECD reserved funds must be obligated prior to September 30th, 2024. State staff can assist with preparing covered program applications and a SECD application. Rural development staff will submit the SECD application on your behalf. Next slide. So now we'll respond to your questions. If we're not able to answer your questions today, we'll follow up with answers either directly to the person posing the questions or by adding the questions and responses to our frequently asked questions.
Thank you, Dan. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and get started with these. We have a few coming in.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm just going to go ahead and pose these to the group. So is CFTA under SECD, under SEDC? And I could repeat that real quick, because I don't know the acronyms, but is CFTA under SEDC?
Stan, I think that's a question. Community Facility Technical Assistance. Stan, I think that's a question for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was trying to figure out that acronym there too. That CFTA, that is not. It is just our direct loan. This year, it'll be our direct loan program and our guaranteed loan program.
Thank you, Stan. Moving along here, would you fund our CNG fueling stations and our CNG vehicles under the Community Facilities Program?
Actually, yes. Of course, again, check with your state office and your local people with rural development that work the community facilities programs in your area, just to make sure. Most of the times what happens is when you're looking at some type of purchase for, let's say you have a water system, for example, that needs new pickup trucks or whatever it might be, they can be alternative fuel vehicles, and we can use our programs for that. As far as the stations, the charging stations for those, the fueling stations, that can get off into the weeds a little bit. So we definitely need to talk to your local folks there. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you, Stan. And we have another CF question for you.
Oh, okay.
Are CF facilities inclusive of homeless shelters, and is proximity to larger cities considered in the application?
Yes. Okay. There's two things going on there. One, we remember we have to be located in the community with 20,000 or less of population, and it must primarily serve rural areas and rural population. So if you have a homeless facility or temporary housing, as we refer to it, because we do have a limit of 2 years, like a transitional type housing programs that we have funded some programs like that. But just remember, the people that be using that facility must be located in rural areas and not the larger population centers.
Thank you, Stan.
Mhm.
And you're just a popular man today, but
I'll just leave my camera on now and then, okay?
So, and you can answer this question here, but since community facilities is not being funded through RD, but through SecD, to whom is an application to be submitted and what is the deadline? Can you clarify that?
Okay, well, I mean, we don't have SecD funding for grants this year. We will not have it set aside for SecD funds. We do have SecD loan funds from our direct loan program and our guaranteed program. We also, in our direct regular program that is not part of SecD, we will have very limited grant available there through our direct program. But we could also use we could partner a direct SecD loan application and possibly look at our regular funding for a little bit of grant that might go along with it. Just depends on what the project is. And as far as the deadline goes, CF does not. We take applications on a continual basis. We don't have any deadline specific. However, SecD funds, we need those applications in so we can get them obligated, I believe, by June 30.
Thanks, Stan.
Mhm.
So now, and this is for the group, but can a municipality such as a local government in Puerto Rico submit an application? And also, does it have to be written only in English?
Yes, for SecD, they can submit a SecD application for sure, and I'll let Taylor and Stan respond to their programs. And with RBDG, I'm sorry, Lisa, once again, is not on Greg Dale read for her, but I'm sure that, yes, if you're a municipality, you can submit an RBDG, you're eligible as well. So
Yeah, local government, absolutely. Local government entities are eligible for the community facilities programs.
That's the same thing for water environmental programs.
Thank you. Now, are grant funds available for business development of a project prior to implementation, i.e. research and development of the project?
this is a rural business development grant question, and since Lisa's not here, I'm not sure. Shannon, I know you asked that question. If you'll put your name in the chat, we can certainly get that question to Lisa for an answer. I'm sorry, she's not here today.
Okay. Pardon me. Keep the questions coming. Should we consider federal RD earmarks for community facility or submit app with the state team?
Okay. I think we're talking about the congressional direct spending earmarks possibly here. They're typically, depending on the population at the facility location, is going to depend on what eligibility of grant is available for that application through the congressional direct spending. So for example, if you're eligible for 75% grant and the congressional direct spending earmark covers 75% of the project, you will need matching funds for the 25. So that's remaining. So yes, you could you could look at utilize SecD funding for that for the loan piece of it. That we don't have any grant money to stack on top of it. So yeah, we would be looking for a loan there.
Thank you. And then we have a couple eligibilities. Are art profit organizations available for dollars, for these dollars? Art
Yeah.
nonprofit organizations.
Okay, yeah, nonprofits are eligible for the Community Facilities Program. They must demonstrate that they have close ties to the local community. Typically, that's, they have some kind of relationship with, whatever the town is there. But yeah, that again, that's one of those things you need to reach out to your local state office and get some further guidance there. That way you can make sure that we got all the bases covered there.
Thank you. Real quickly, what about an assisted living facility? Could that be covered under SECD?
Absolutely. We do a lot of assisted living facilities in our program. There's the healthcare component there kind of gets us beyond the temporary housing. So yes.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
So the evaluation criteria that was discussed for application covering collaboration, resources, investment, rural vision, and performance measures, is there a website that summarizes that information? I'm sure we could put the SECD URL in the chat, but is there?
Could you ask that again? I'm sorry, Scott.
Yeah,
I
no
apologize.
problem, no problem. Sorry, let me just find where I was here.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No worries. Okay, so the evaluation criteria that was discussed for application covering collaboration, resources, investment, rural vision, and performance measures. Is there a website that summarizes that information? Or some more information about that?
Yes, there's the SECD web page, and I think somebody put that in the link into. Yeah, the SECD website is in the chat. So yes, that information will be in there on that website.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
Is populations based upon city or county population for the 2020 census?
For CF programs, yes.
Thank you. What is the maximum loan amount for an assisted living facility, for example?
I might as well just leave my camera on here today. There is no maximum amount. For example, we've talked about healthcare a little bit today. I'm looking at a project right now, one of the states that I work with, that is actually remodeling an existing hospital that was built in the early 1960s. So as you can imagine, it needs a lot of upgrading. And those can be very expensive projects. So we're approaching close to $90 million on that particular request. Now that's not a SECD application. That is just through our direct program. So to answer the question about assisted living facility, there's no maximum amount, but we don't want to. One of the requirements that we have our architectural review is make sure it is reasonable in design and aspect.
Thank you. And that wraps up all the questions, but I do want to encourage folks that we can also ask directly a question to our panel today by raising your virtual hand, and then I will unmute you and you can ask your question. So Hendrik, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, sir, and then you can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak. Hendrik?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Hendrik, and I'm participating in this program from Guam. I am the president of a locally recognized nonprofit organization. It is called Chukis, is part of Micronesia, but the population here on Guam is growing faster. I just want to let you know that. And we just bought a property here on Guam to build a multi-purpose structure. And we're looking for financing on that. What kind of program would we be eligible for under your services?
Well, I'll jump in right there. Thanks for the question and being and joining today from Guam. Yes, Guam is growing. I was on a conference call not too long ago that we were all discussing a project that was going on there. What I recommend that you do is reach out to the state office that is located there.
Okay.
You can reach us through the RD site there that was posted. You can should be able to get a phone number there and an email and maybe possibly a contact name as well. But yeah, reach out to them and see, depending on exactly what it is that you're looking at trying to do with that community center, which is what it sounds like, a multi-purpose type community center. There are some things that are eligible, but we need to. It's kind of a broad question, but that's the first place I would go. But yes, absolutely, we'd love to talk to you.
All right. I'll be very happy. Thank you, Stan.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Before quickly we go to the next phrase, I just want to just clarify something and ask a question again. Are LLC private for-profit companies eligible for any dollars for startup business?
Not in the community facilities program, but in the rural business it is.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
So now I'm gonna go back to the phone lines. Ross, you can go ahead and talk, and then Sharon, you'll be on deck. So Ross, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and speak to the panel.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. I work with a nonprofit called the National Veterans Wellness and Healing Center in Intro Fire, New Mexico. And we want to build a retreat facility to help veterans with PTSD. We have a very, very successful program that does actually a better job than most other psychiatric facilities, including the VA. And so I'm wondering if you guys have any funding for something like that to construct our own facilities.
That one's for me again. First, thank you for the work that you're doing. We appreciate you that out to New Mexico. Now, depending on what type of facility that you're wanting to construct, there is absolutely, we have funds available for long-term fixed rate loans. What we need to do is, again, reach out to your local state office, and they'll probably put you in touch with maybe even a office that's closer to your location, and they can talk about the parameters that are available through the program. But yes, we any type of transitional housing or things like that are needed, those are absolutely eligible for our program.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sharon, if you'd like to take yourself off mute, and then Jen, you'll be on deck.
Hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sharon Crossan, and I wanted to inquire to what capacity does the allowance work with community kitchens?
Question, that's all that I wanted to know.
Community kitchens, and in that I'm asking if funds are granted. I think a loan might be granted, because if I'm not mistaken, you say you don't have any grant money left for that program. But do you allow for the loan to be used to purchase the building, or do you need to have the building and the loan must be designated for other purposes?
Thank you for that question. Yes and no. Yes, we can make a loan for either the purchase of a building. If you want to purchase and renovate a facility, that's also eligible as well. We do like to look at you will need to have a business plan in place, of course, for that to show projections, so we can, if we are looking at making a loan, we need to be able to show repayment ability and cash flow there. So, but absolutely, community kitchens, food banks, any of those type things are absolutely eligible for CF programs.
Thank you very much.
Jen, and then Arnetta, you'll be after Jen.
Hi, good afternoon or hello, everybody. Thanks so much for the webinar. Very helpful. My question is for the Rural Business Development Grant. Kind of a two-part question, I think. One is if solar photovoltaic installations would be covered under that program. And if I'm following correctly, that would also need to be kind of under the umbrella of a community development plan.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the question? Are you talking about installing those on a building? Are you talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Installing them on a building on a rural business.
Okay. And it's going to benefit the business? Obviously.
Yes. Well, it's the business and the community. So great. Thank you for that. The solar installation will also support EV chargers that will be available to the public. So it'll be both the business and the community, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. With under rural business development grant, I think that's an eligible project. Once again, Lisa's not here, but I'm pretty sure it is. And I'll check with her to make sure. And then Stan, you talked about electric vehicles, and I don't know if that could be part of that project or not, but
Absolutely. The problem we're going to run into there is the applicant. Make sure that they are a nonprofit. If you're a for-profit entity, not eligible for CF program.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, you guys.
thanks.
Okay. Jim Smith, you'd like to unmute yourself, sir? And then we had Nina, you'll be next.
Great. Thank you very much for taking the question. It was related to a comment from Mr. Batson regarding the quote plan, end quote. Are there copies of that plan? And the reason I ask, it seems that would be a useful inclusion in the locality's comprehensive plan. Thank you.
I'm sorry, copy. Oh, the strategic community investment plan.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's the term the regulation uses to cover all plans, like the SEDS, or whether it's a city comprehensive plan or an industrial development authority's plan. That's just a standard term that we use for plans. So I don't have a strategic community investment plan. It's a plan that would be submitted to us with a SECD application. Does that help clarify?
Yes, it does. And I just would look through the regs to see what elements you would be looking for to ensure they were included in the comprehensive plan.
Yes, correct.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Jim. Nina Walker, if you want to go ahead and ask your question and unmute yourself. And then we have Arnetta, you'll be next.
Something needs to be done there.
Hi, this is Nina. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I have two questions. Does rural development fund affordable housing under any of these options? The development of affordable housing, I guess I should say.
Yeah, that comes up quite often in the community facilities programs. Once again, we're restricted to temporary housing. So we can't do, any kind of development, neighborhood development, subdivision development, things like that.
Okay.
Now, we do have in our under rural development, we have our single family housing program.
Okay.
That is a program where the individual is getting a mortgage loan to help purchase. Once again, being in rural areas, they have very favorable rates and terms. So I recommend that you just look at our website and you can get to our single family housing. There's also multifamily housing. Multifamily housing is a program that is for like apartment type complexes and things like that. So there's, and again, reach out to your state office. We typically have people in those in the state offices that handle those programs, and you can be in touch with them.
Okay. And my other question is, so under the community facilities program, if you were going to construct or acquire a land or a building or whatever, when you apply, do you have to have already identified the location that you are interested in purchasing or renovating?
Not necessarily, no. Of course, eventually we'll need that information. But if you're wanting just to look at kind of an idea that you have in mind and what you want to do, absolutely reach out to our local staff and kind of relay what you're wanting to do and talk about your plan. Then you can go identify a site. You can move from there. But yeah, absolutely, we'd love to talk to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Arnetta Cotton, if you'd like to ask your question, please. And then
Yes,
Colleen will be
please.
next.
I have a few, okay. I'm in the state of Oklahoma, and when you talked about vehicles being able to apply depending on it, does that also apply for food? If you needed a vehicle in order to deliver food?
Again, that's a community facilities question. Absolutely. You could, we fund, food banks, delivery vehicles, those type things, but that is absolutely an eligible program. But again, just make sure whoever the applicant is more than likely a nonprofit or
Yes.
a municipality or one of the federally recognized tribes.
We have less than 2,000 in our rural community, and we are a CBO. If in temporary housing, since the housing is temporary, would seasonal farm workers be eligible for us to construct housing? We just bought some acreage, and them being close enough to live and work where we need is an issue.
Right. That's not the first time I've had that question asked to me in the last 2 or 3 months. And yes, there is a need that's out there. One of the problems we run into though is with the temporary housing, there's got to be a limit to whatever that service is that facility is providing. So it gets tricky when it comes to workforce type housing development of any kind like that. So again, reach out to your state office and they can give you further guidance on that, because it's kind of hard to a broad brush. Then we have to be careful with that, how we approach that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So in the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Daniel Webster for some closing remarks, and make sure you get this contact information down so you can ask any other questions. Dan?
Thank you, Scott. So to locate a rural development staff in your state, you can use the link presented in the slide. Also, the SecD website can be accessed for information and tools, including application materials and application preparation guidance. National Office SecD contacts are Dr. Greg Batson and Mr. Gregory Dale. Next slide. Thank you all for joining the SecD webinar today, and we look forward to receiving, reviewing, and scoring your SecD application. Thank you.